It's SEO-optimized YouTube video description.
The Matrix is real. Hacking your brain, society, and the multiverse deep dive.
Are you in control of your reality, or is your brain lying to you? In this deep dive, we break down the invisible systems governing human existence, from the neuroscience of visual masking and the illusion of time to the algorithmic exploitation of the peak shift effect on Instagram. Discover why society controls your identity, why the world's elite operate like apex predators playing a game, and why learning to code is the modern equivalent of speaking the language of infrastructure. We also explore the terrifying implications of quantum suicide and multiple timelines. If you want to understand the true source code of reality, power structures, and human evolution, this is the breakdown you need.
0.
The brain's real-time reality hacks.
15. Social engineering and the illusion of identity.
30. The apex predator mindset and loss aversion.
45. Math, coding, and the multiverse.
In neuroscience, psychology, quantum physics, multiverse, saccadic masking, flow state, mental models, global affairs, technology trends, future of medicine, coding, artificial intelligence.
If you look at a ticking analog clock and the second hand seems to freeze for just a fraction too long, you have just caught your own brain lying to you.
Yeah, it's a literal glitch.
Right. You are not in control of your reality. In fact, humanity is operating on deeply flawed biological hardware. And honestly, those who understand the glitches in this system are the ones who control the future.
Absolutely. Because right now, your biology, your social feeds, your very identity, they're being hacked.
Hacked by people who understand this operating system way better than you do. So let's look at the source code of human perception today. What exactly is happening when that second hand freezes?
Okay, so we're dealing with a biological workaround called chronostasis. To understand this, you have to realize that human eyes do not capture smooth, continuous video. They just don't.
Like they aren't cinematic cameras.
Not at all. They move in these violent, synchronized bursts called saccades. And if your brain actually processed the raw visual data coming in during those rapid micromovements, you would be constantly dizzy. Yeah, the motion blur would be completely nauseating.
So the brain just shuts off the feed, like swinging a camera too fast and just cutting the footage so the audience doesn't throw up.
That is the mechanical reality of it, yeah.
Yeah.
You are functionally blind for those milliseconds.
Wait, blind?
Literally blind. But evolution couldn't have you walking around experiencing constant, terrifying blackouts while trying to survive in the wild, right? So the moment your eyes lock onto a new target.
Like that second hand on the clock.
Exactly. Your brain grabs that still image and retroactively pastes it over the blackout period in your memory.
Yeah.
It literally edits your sense of time so you feel like you were looking at the clock the entire time your eyes were moving.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's essentially like a video game engine that only renders the environment the player is directly looking at to, save processing power.
That's a highly accurate way to visualize it. It's faking a continuous world. There's this brilliant sci-fi novel by Peter Watts called Blindsight, which explores the devastating vulnerability of this exact mechanism.
Oh, I think I know this one.
Yeah, so in the book, humans encounter an alien race that figures out our biological frame rate. The aliens only move during human saccades.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Right. If you stare at them, they are perfectly still. But the microsecond, your eyes dart away, they move closer. Your brain never registers the movement because, well, you are blind when it happens.
That is incredibly unsettling. But I mean, it makes sense. Our hardware wasn't built for discovering objective truth. It was built to keep us from getting eaten.
Exactly. The brain is just an extreme survival engine. Your eyes are basically chemical cameras, heavily filtered by a processor trying to conserve calories. It only shows you what you need to see to find food and evade predators.
Which explains so much about human history.
Right. It's the fundamental reason human beings had to invent objective measuring tools.
Yeah.
Physical cameras, scales, thermometers. We just cannot trust our own hardware to tell us the truth about the physical world.
Okay, but if our external visual input is a biological hack, what about our internal processing? Because for most people, it feels like there is a constant, exhausting war inside their own heads between what they want to do and what they actually do.
Well, there is a war. And to win it, you have to realize there isn't just one coherent self in there. There are two competing systems.
Two systems, okay.
Yeah. You have the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of rationality, long-term planning, and intelligence. This is the part of you that evolved very recently. And then you have the limbic system, the older brain. The monkey brain.
The monkey brain that just wants to eat refined sugar, avoid all physical exertion, and doom scroll social media for dopamine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the trap most people fall into is trying to fight that older brain. They reprimand it. They try to forcefully out-willpower their own biology, it's a structural impossibility over a long timeline.
Because willpower eventually depletes.
Right. If I tell you right now, do not think of a white elephant for the next 30 seconds,
Right.
you are going to fail immediately.
Because I'm picturing it right now.
Of course. Because the act of monitoring your thoughts to ensure you aren't thinking of the elephant requires you to, well, think of the elephant.
Guaranteed failure. So if willpower is a myth, how do we actually manage this internal conflict?
You have to treat the limbic system exactly like a pet. If you have a dog that's barking loudly at the door, you don't scream at it to be quiet, you ignore it until it settles down, or you distract it.
You give it a toy.
Precisely. More importantly, you have to keep the monkey brain occupied through play. When you give that older brain a task it's skilled at, and you let it operate freely without the fear of failure, you enter a state of flow.
Like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow.
Yes, he documented this extensively.
Right, the feeling of just losing track of time when you're deeply engaged in something.
Exactly. And here is the mechanical secret behind flow. When the monkey brain is fully engaged in play, the newer brain, specifically a network called the default mode network, which is the biological seat of anxiety, self-criticism, and depression, it actually powers down.
Wait, it just shuts off.
It takes a break. You literally cannot be anxious and in a state of flow simultaneously. That is the biological secret to happiness.
But wait, so instead of trying to out-willpower my monkey brain when I want a donut or when I'm overwhelmed by anxiety, what happens when behavioral hacks just aren't enough? Because if we are just chemical machines, it seems like the future of optimizing this hardware isn't just psychological tricks, it has to be pharmacological.
Oh, you are hitting on the core of the next major leap in human evolution here, precision medicine.
Right.
Right now, the global supplement and pharmaceutical industries are incredibly blunt instruments.
Yeah.
At a fundamental mechanical level, when a molecule enters your bloodstream, it's basically a key looking for a lock.
And the lock is a receptor in your brain or body.
Yes.
And historically, our medical keys have been pretty clumsy, right? Like, they fit into locks they weren't supposed to,
Yeah.
which is why a drug for depression might cause massive weight gain or insomnia.
That is the exact problem. We use systemic drugs that flood the entire engine. Some molecules are agonists, meaning they trigger the receptor to release more of a chemical, like dopamine or acetylcholine.
Okay, so agonists push the gas pedal.
Right. And others are antagonists, which literally jam the lock so nothing else can get in, like how an antihistamine blocks the allergic response.
Okay, so antagonists hit the brakes.
Exactly. But currently, we don't know your specific locks, and we don't know your clearance rates.
Clearance rate.
Yeah, how fast a drug is removed by your liver, which is hepatic clearance, or your kidneys, which is renal clearance. This varies wildly across the global population.
So my liver might process a chemical in 2 hours while yours takes 12. Meaning the exact same pill gives me a nice boost and leaves you completely lethargic.
Yes, so the future of medicine involves mapping an individual's total chemical and genomic profile. In 10 years, you won't take a generic supplement.
You'll have something custom.
You will know exactly what your neurochemical baseline is, and you'll be prescribed highly specific precision agonists and antagonists tailored to your exact genome and clearance rates. We are moving toward an era of targeted chemical optimization, replacing unregulated guesswork with engineering.
Okay, but if our baseline biology is this easily manipulated, if we're just survival engines running on hackable chemical locks and keys, what happens when you scale that vulnerability up to 8 billion people? Society is basically just a massive network of these flawed biological machines.
Well, it scales up by completely stripping away the illusion of individual identity.
I have a hard time buying that. Are you saying my entire personality, like my introversion, my sense of humor, my specific tastes, is just a product of societal peer pressure that challenges the most sacred advice on the internet? Just be yourself.
Yeah, well, be yourself is a biological myth.
A myth.
A total myth. Your identity is nothing more than your genetics colliding with your environment. To understand the mechanism of this, look at the extreme cases of feral children.
Okay, feral children, like raised by wolves.
Or chickens. In 1979, a boy named Sajjit Kumar was discovered in Fiji. He had been locked under a house by his father and raised entirely by chickens.
Wait, really? Chickens?
Literally. When he was rescued, he couldn't speak. His only verbalization was clucking. He would perch, he would peck at his food.
So without a human society around him to project an identity onto him, he just didn't develop a human self at all.
Exactly. As you grow up, society points at you, gives you a name, and defines your characteristics. You internalize those definitions.
Wow.
Your identity is like your index finger. It cannot point at itself. Every single thought you have is a slight variation of a thought society put into your head through language and culture. This is why you cannot fundamentally change who you are through sheer willpower.
Because you'll just revert to your biological and social baseline in like 3 days. It's the classic New Year's resolution trap.
Yes. If you want to change who you are, you must radically change your environment. Consciously or unconsciously, you will conform to the norms of the people around you. It's just a survival reflex to blend into the tribe.
But for a lot of people listening right now, physically packing up and moving to a new city to change their environment just isn't a realistic option.
It doesn't have to be physical anymore. The digital infrastructure of the internet allows you to curate a bespoke environment.
Digital tribes.
Right. If you want to become a global entrepreneur, you join a meta startup group. If you want to get fit, you integrate into an online bodybuilding community. You surround yourself with those specific social signals until peer pressure literally rewires your behavior and, consequently, your identity.
But if we can hack our own environment by curating our feeds, how are massive corporations doing this to us on a global scale? I mean, how do algorithms weaponize this biology?
Through a behavioral mechanism called the peak shift effect. This is a concept from discriminatory learning in animals.
Okay, break that down for me.
So if you train a rat to respond to a basic rectangle for a food reward, and then you present that rat with an exaggerated, incredibly long, extreme version of that rectangle, the rat will have an even more extreme, compulsive, positive response to the new shape.
It actually prefers the artificial exaggeration over the reality it was trained on.
Always. You see it in nature, too. If honeybees naturally gravitate toward yellow flowers, they will instinctively choose a deeper, highly unnatural synthetic shade of yellow if given the option.
Why? That seems counterintuitive.
They do this to prevent misidentification. Their survival wiring says, I need to be absolutely sure this is a flower and not a pale imitation, so I will go for the most intense signal possible.
Oh, wow. Think about the last time you opened your phone. You weren't looking at reality. You were looking at a weaponized exaggeration designed to hijack your specific chemical makeup.
That is exactly what Instagram and TikTok are built on. The entire digital landscape is a weaponized peak shift effect.
Because of filters and curated feeds.
Yes. Human beings are biologically wired to respond to clear skin, symmetrical faces, high-calorie food, status symbols. So social media algorithms exclusively feed us highly aesthetic, filtered, caricatured versions of reality, flawless faces, impossibly vibrant travel destinations, richer colors.
And we just can't look away.
Our biology cannot look away because, like the bee, our limbic system is drawn to the most intense signal to avoid missing a survival opportunity.
And this completely fractures the global market, right? It shifts power dynamics entirely. We just talked about how algorithms isolate these intense signals, but how does that change the economy?
It changes everything.
Because I was reading about the contrast between the legacy alcohol industry and the modern cannabis industry. Alcohol built its empire during the era of mass media TV. 4 or 5 massive corporate brands broadcasting to hundreds of millions of people, but modern markets don't work like that at all.
They don't. Because the internet is not a mass medium. It is a highly fragmented collection of isolated, intense digital tribes. Cannabis, or even modern premium coffee, is marketed to very specific niche environments online.
So the broad messaging is dead.
Completely. The cost of manufacturing and digital distribution is so low now that the market instantly fragments into a million pieces. The era of the ubiquitous, monolithic household brand is dying.
You have to specialize.
You have to be comfortable not being famous to the masses. You have to target a niche and dominate a highly fragmented tribe.
You know, if you're finding this breakdown of the invisible systems controlling our behavior valuable, make sure to like this deep dive. It really helps us keep unpacking these structural forces for you.
It definitely does.
So let's take this a step further. We'd established that society defines our identity, and digital algorithms are fracturing us into hyper-specific tribes. In that kind of fragmented landscape, what separates the dominant forces from everyone else? How do individuals or corporations become apex predators in this system?
Well, first, we have to completely redefine what dominance actually looks like.
Okay.
When people think of an apex predator or a powerful CEO, they picture the traditional alpha male. A creature driven by defensive aggression, constantly fighting, stressed out, trying to protect its rank in a social hierarchy.
Like a silverback gorilla beating its chest.
Right. But if you look at true apex predators in the animal kingdom, they do not operate on defensive aggression.
They operate on the exploratory circuit.
Exactly. Look at killer whales. Whales travel in pods. And because they have no natural predators, they don't just hunt for caloric survival. There are documented instances of whales separating a baby seal from its mother, spending 6 hours drowning it, and then eating nothing but the tongue before leaving the rest.
Wow, that's brutal.
Or dolphins, which will slaughter hundreds of porpoises in a single afternoon for absolute sport. They don't compete for the same food sources. The killing serves no evolutionary caloric purpose.
So why do they do it?
They do it simply because it stimulates the neural circuit for excitement and novelty.
That is incredibly dark. You're saying the pinnacle of the animal kingdom is basically operating like a bored psychopath. How does that possibly translate to us without just building terrible people or toxic corporations?
It translates mechanically to how you achieve peak performance. Animals will avoid the neural circuits associated with stress, fear, and defensive aggression at all costs because it burns too much energy.
Right.
So to build a peak human, if you wanted to train a real-life Batman, you do not force them through immense grinding struggle and suffering. You train them through non-competitive play, where failure has zero repercussions.
So viewing the world entirely as a sandbox game.
Yes, if you look at top-tier esports players, like the world champions in Dota 2, when they play in a tournament against people of their own rank, it is pure stress. They play conservatively.
Because they're afraid of losing.
Exactly. But when they practice against much lower-ranked players, they toy with them. They take extreme, mathematically absurd risks just for the fun of it, to see what happens.
Ah, the exploratory circuit.
Right. And it is in that state of play, where they are treating the environment as a sandbox with no consequences, that true mastery, innovation, and unpredictability are forged. That translates directly to how the most dominant global businesses operate. They experiment wildly when the stakes are low.
But how does this predator mindset apply to something like creativity?
Correct.
Creativity feels like it should be this organic, magical process, not a ruthless, predatory acquisition.
Well, creativity isn't magic. It's just the mechanical acquisition and combination of patterns.
Patterns.
Yeah. Think of learning the piano. You don't sit down and invent a symphony. You start by learning the physical keys. Then you copy simple patterns like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Then you spend years replicating Beethoven and Mozart.
Stealing their patterns.
Exactly. And only when you have internalized thousands of external patterns do you start combining them to create something society labels as original.
It's like learning graphic design on Photoshop. You don't just invent the new brutalist style out of thin air. You go to a site like Dribbble, you find a weathered poster tutorial, and you literally copy it pixel by pixel to learn how the layers work.
Precisely. You learn the vocabulary of the tools. Once you have enough stolen patterns in your mental arsenal, you introduce slight variations. That variation is what we call creativity.
But if business and creativity are just the game of acquiring patterns and playing in a sandbox, why do established, powerful entities fail so often? Like, why did a giant like Kodak collapse?
Because of a psychological mechanism called loss aversion. Human beings are wired so that the pain of losing $10 is far greater than the joy of gaining $10.
Right.
So the more capital, market share, and reputation a business builds up, the more terrified they are of losing it. This triggers the sunk cost fallacy.
Because they want to protect what they have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kodak actually invented the first digital camera, but their executives buried the technology because they were terrified of cannibalizing their highly profitable physical film sales. They tried to protect their rank.
Whereas a company like Apple survived and dominated because they were willing to destroy their own products.
Exactly. Apple routinely cannibalized its own massive revenue streams. They deliberately killed the iPod, which is generating billions, by putting a music player inside the iPhone.
They made their own product obsolete.
They gambled their established dominance for future leverage. To win over a long timeline, you must operate as if you have absolutely nothing to lose.
Which explains why young entrepreneurs and disruptors are often viewed by the public as incredibly arrogant.
Arrogance gets a terrible reputation, but in the early stages of building something disruptive, it is a vital psychological coping mechanism.
Really? A coping mechanism.
Yes. Society is constantly projecting its own fears, biological risk aversion, and insecurities onto anyone trying to build something new. If a young founder isn't somewhat arrogant, their exploratory circuit will be crushed by the ambiguity and pessimism of the crowd.
So they have to block it out.
Arrogance is a necessary barrier to protect the idea until the vision is fully realized.
We just talked about how Apple used their environment to outcompete Kodak by manipulating technology. But the environment itself has fundamentally changed over the last 2 decades.
Dramatically.
We are no longer competing in a purely physical space. We are competing in a digital infrastructure. So if we zoom out to the ultimate leverage points of the next 20 years, what is the fundamental skill required to manipulate this new environment?
You have to learn to speak the language of the infrastructure. You have to learn to code.
Okay, explain the mechanism there. Because a lot of people think AI is just going to do the coding for us. Why is learning the syntax still so critical?
Imagine trying to orchestrate a massive global supply chain in France, but you refuse to learn French.
You need a translator for everything.
Right. You have to hire translators for every single thought you have, every deal you make, every instruction you give. You are entirely at the mercy of the translator's interpretation.
And the AI is the translator.
Exactly. That is what not knowing how to code is today. Everything around us, from global finance to logistics to the media we consume, has a digital interface. It is the protocol for modern wealth.
So if you can't speak directly to it,
If you can only speak to other humans and you rely on software or AI to translate your intent to the machines, you are structurally blind. Learning to code gives you the direct ability to bend the environment to your will.
here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because beneath the code of the internet, there is a language even deeper. The absolute source code of the universe itself, mathematics.
Yes. Mathematics is the only universal truth we have.
Period.
Period. To understand why it transcends human perception, we have to look at dimensions. Imagine a completely two-dimensional world, a flat piece of paper, and imagine a conscious 2D Mickey Mouse lives on that paper.
Okay, tracking. He only knows length and width, no depth.
Right. Now imagine a 3D basketball passes perfectly through that piece of paper. Mickey Mouse has no conceptual framework for depth. He cannot comprehend a sphere.
So what does he see?
What he would actually experience in his 2D reality is a single dot appearing out of nowhere, expanding into a massive circle as the widest part of the ball passes through, and then shrinking back down to a dot before vanishing entirely.
Because he can only perceive the 2D cross-section of a 3D event. That's a mind-bending way to think about our own limitations. We are 3D beings, so we couldn't comprehend a fourth or fifth dimensional event interacting with our space.
We couldn't perceive it visually, no, but mathematics cuts through all of it.
Oh, wow.
The equation 1 + 2 = 3 is mathematically true for the 2D. Mickey Mouse is true in our 3D reality, and it remains true in a 10,000 dimensional universe. Mathematics is the fundamental structural truth that governs reality, entirely independent of our flawed biological perception.
Which raises profound, almost terrifying questions about the nature of that reality. Let's push this to the absolute limit. Let's talk about quantum mechanics, Hugh Everett, and the many worlds interpretation.
Ah, the multiverse.
Yeah, because if math is the base layer, math suggests our reality is constantly fracturing.
It does. In classical Newtonian mechanics, if you flip a coin and you know every single variable, the wind resistance, the mass of the coin, the exact force of your thumb, you can predict the outcome with 100% accuracy.
The universe is deterministic.
Right. But quantum mechanics operates on entirely different rules. If you observe a decaying cesium atom, whether it emits a particle at any given exact moment is fundamentally mathematically random.
And back in the 20th century, scientists like Niels Bohr shocked the world by suggesting that until you measure it, the atom exists in a state of probability.
Yes, superposition.
But Hugh Everett took it a step further.
Everett expanded that math into the many worlds interpretation. He proposed that the universe doesn't just pick a probability. Every single time a quantum event occurs, every possible outcome actually happens.
Reality literally splits.
It branches, like a film strip, dividing in infinite directions for every possible variable.
Which leads to the most unsettling thought experiment in physics, quantum suicide. Explain how this works, because it messes with the concept of mortality. Imagine Schrödinger's cat, but you are the cat inside the box.
Right. You sit in a closed box with a gun pointed at your head.
Okay.
The gun's trigger is hooked up to a decaying cesium atom. If the atom decays, the mechanism triggers, the gun fires, and you die instantly. If it doesn't decay, the gun just clicks empty. It's a 50-50 quantum probability.
So if you pull a trigger, the universe branches.
According to the math, yes. In one branching universe, the gun fires, you die instantly, and outside observers open the box and plan your funeral.
Right.
But in the exact same moment, another universe branches off where the gun just clicks and you survive.
But here is the terrifying catch. You can only experience the universe where you possess consciousness.
Exactly. You have zero subjective awareness in the universe where you died. Therefore, your continuous stream of consciousness will always follow the branch where the gun clicks empty.
Oh my God.
If you sit there and pull the trigger 50 times, outside observers in countless timelines will see you die on the first, second, or third pull. But from your subjective perspective, you will hear 50 consecutive clicks.
You will perceive yourself as functionally immortal.
Yes. Having survived impossible odds while leaving a trail of dead versions of yourself in infinite parallel timelines.
This raises profound questions about our daily reality. Are we just surviving in the one specific timeline where we haven't failed yet? Drop a comment below and let's debate the multiverse theory. Because frankly, the concept of quantum suicide gives me a massive existential crisis.
It's definitely a lot to process.
Subjective immortality means you never actually get the release of death. You just age and get sick and suffer infinitely in your own conscious branching timeline.
Well, yes. The mathematics point to a rather horrifying conclusion. But the physicist Max Tegmark offered a resolution that puts that horror to rest, thankfully.
Oh, thank God. What is it?
The flaw in the fear is assuming consciousness is binary, that it's either simply on or off. Consciousness is actually a spectrum.
A spectrum.
Yeah. As your physical body fails in these branching universes due to old age or illness, you don't stay sharply, painfully conscious. You branch into universes with progressively lower degrees of awareness. You slip into a coma, your cognition fades, and you eventually dial down the spectrum until you reach zero.
Wow. Okay, so we've journeyed from the biological lies our eyes tell us every time we look at a clock to the societal software that programs our identity, through the fragmented digital markets and apex predators, all the way to the mathematical source code and the branching multiverse.
And the ultimate takeaway is that every single layer of this biology, society, physics, it all operates on recognizable systems.
And to leave you with one final thought, let's bring it all the way back down from 10,000 dimensions to your living room.
Let's do it.
The next time you are at a small gathering, a party with 4 or 5 people, take a step back and just observe the archetypes. Watch the social game play out. There is the couch, the person who immediately trauma dumps to monopolize the group's attention.
We all know one.
Right. Then there's the baby, who acts helplessly confused so others will fetch them drinks or solve their problems. There's the mind reader, who aggressively projects their own insecurities onto you. And the trunk, the person who reduces every meaningful, forward-looking conversation into a cynical joke to keep everything rooted in their own stagnant reality.
Spot on.
Realize that every single one of them is just running a conditioned script. They're responding to their environment, chasing peak shifts, and protecting their egos through loss aversion. The universe, from the people in your living room to the quantum decay of atoms, is just a series of geometric patterns and behavioral codes. Once you see the code, you can rewrite it. Make sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more breakdowns into the invisible frameworks that shape our world. We'll see you next time.